And we are live. Welcome to the Bassett Magazine podcast. Guys, Bassett Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. I'm Jay Angel. I'm going to be your podcaster. With me tonight, I have Brad Yoel from Bassett Magazine, of course. And also, it is Bassett Magazine podcast honor to have Dakota Ebare, Major League Fishing, not just pro, but champion. Dakota won, among other tournaments, he won the season opener at Sam Rayburn. And man, if you can win a tournament at Sam Rayburn, Dakota, my hat's off to you. How you doing tonight, Dakota?
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm doing great.
And also, Dakota is
doing
from
great.
Dakota
just
is
I'm
from
actually.
little
I feel this is there's
sorry.
a classic turkey. Yeah, I'm here at my friend Casey Ashley's place, and stole his office for a little bit just to be able to do this podcast. So look.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. We already have the first comment. It was from Cajun Rob, of course. He said, "Good evening, guys. Great guest and an absolute hammer." So we already have one of your fans, Dakota.
Awesome.
So also Dakota is from he grew up in the town, small little I live in of Watson, Louisiana. So the people from Watson are going to be happy to hear this, Dakota.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I grew up there, just fishing little neighborhood ponds around there, and fishing the evening from the Canal Bank, Blind River, Diversion Canal area, and then False River, fishing tournaments out there and stuff. So definitely, that's my old backyard, my stomping grounds.
Yeah. You probably even got over to the spillway in the Henderson, didn't you?
Yeah, some. It's a little bit of a drive there from the house, man. But we go down there every once in a while, fish Rama. The area, or maybe run down the spillway every once in a while, Fred, maybe Bayou Pigeon, stuff like that. Occasionally go down to Bayou Black.
Sure. I have family down in Bayou Black. Yeah, I go down there quite a bit. I fish that area. That's where I learned how to punch.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I do apologize about this. We have a little bit of lag. I usually don't like dead air, but I think that I think that our voices aren't syncing up here right. But if you've listened to the Bassett Magazine podcast or the Let's Talk Fishing podcast, you understand that StreamYard is not the best platform. If you have better ideas, guys, just let me know, please. I'll change in a minute. But anyway, so Dakota, Sam Rayburn, tough, really that body of water. Man, what was it that gave you the edge to beat some of the best bass fishermen in the world, like Kevin Van Dam, all those icons?
Yeah, I'm kind of having a little bit of trouble tracking you. It's real chopped up. I wasn't really sure about the question. I heard something about Rayburn, though. Definitely very fortunate to start off the season there fishing that Toyota Series event, getting a win there. That's where I live at now. So it was nice to be able to fish a tournament right there at home to start off the season and get a win.
I bet it was you the edge to be able to pull off the win. And it's tough. Well, not tough to fish, but a tough place to compete.
Yeah, again, I missed most of that question there, but as far as getting an edge, I'd say that spending a lot of time on the water has been key to having success really at Rayburn and all around the country. Just spending a lot of time on the water, day in and day out, learning how to adjust to the conditions and stuff whenever they change.
So let's talk about confidence lures. Confidence lures at Sam Rayburn. What is your go-to? Of course, competing at the level you compete at, you have to know how to do everything. But what is your?
Yeah, as far as confidence lures, one thing that's interesting about Sam Rayburn, is that it's always changing. Really, all of our East Texas lakes. Some years we have grass, some years we don't. Some years it's high, high, some years the water's low. So there's really not a by the book way to go about fishing there at any particular time of the year, because it's always changing. It's always different. So it teaches you to be able to make those adjustments on the fly. But, typically at that time of the year, you do have, your traditional red eye shad, throwing like a lipless crankbait, throwing a jerk bait, throwing a jig, a rig, Alabama rig with some rage swimmers on there. That's always typically, a player some way, some shape, depending on, like I said, what the conditions are for that year and at that time. But for me in that event, the jerkbait was a huge player. I also threw an Alabama rig quite a bit and caught football jig and on a 6XD as well, big crankbait.
So what were you throwing a jerkbait to? Deep water, shallow water, structure, rock?
Just it was a deeper diving jerkbait. So, it would get down to that 10, 12-foot range and just targeting those fish that are staging pre-spawn, just setting up. They really kind of spend, they kind of winter and stage pre-spawn kind of in the same areas. They'll use those drains to move in and out towards those spawning areas. And they'll also kind of, when it gets cold, go back down into the depression or the drain. And those fish will stage there until time to go spawn, and then they'll move right up into those spawning areas. So a jerkbait is just a great way to target those fish. At that time, I was using a deep diving jerkbait from Strike King, the 300 DD.
Sure.
In bone color, just something that looks kind of natural, just more of a shag color. And really just, like I said, targeting isolated structure and targeting those schools of fish that I could see.
Well, you came in with some incredible fried fish baskets. I mean, you want to tell the people about that?
Yeah, that was a big today. I think I had 32.4, which was able to get me the win there. And, that was the biggest bag that I've ever caught in a 5-fish tournament weighed in. So it was pretty good timing as well, because even the 32.4 that I had, I only beat out Franklin's by only maybe a pound, I think. So, there was quite a few really big bags caught on that second day. It was kind of a perfect storm where, there were some really big groups of big fish and some guys found them. So, there were several bags in the high 20s that day. And fortunately, I had 32.4, which put me over the top. The next day, a local tournament was won with a bag over 40. I think they had 41 or 42. So, you never know at Sam Rayburn. That's one of the great things I love about living there is that, man, it always is a challenge because you could come in with 35 to 40 pounds and actually not win. And as crazy as that is, somebody could have more. Sometimes it takes, like I said, in the mid 40s to win there. That's pretty rare, but it does happen. And it's happened a couple times this year. So, but there's also, what's crazy is that sometimes you could go out and have it. You're probably going to get beat really bad and come in 20, 21, 22 pounds wins. So it's just one of those things where you never know.
Wow. Wow. That's an incredible story. So the fish were still pre-spawn and you were getting them as they were transitioning into their spawning areas?
Really, that was a little early. That was in January. So they were starting to stage pre-spawn, but for the, so I would say like late winter, early spring pattern is more of what I would call it.
Brad, did you have any questions?
I muted myself to help the lag.
Oh.
So, yeah, okay. I'm just listening. It's amazing. Bassin, we were the official magazine for Major League Fishing for a long time. I know a bunch of you anglers. I met a ton of you guys, and that Sam Rayburn tournament was in late January, and I've had conversations with people about where the fish were going to be and how they were going to be caught, and you went out and did exactly not what any of us talked about, and that's what it takes, and you did great to catch those fish.
Yeah, sometimes you have to think outside of the box. Sometimes it's right down the house of where you think it'll be. Sometimes it's not. So there was a couple different ways to catch those fish. In that tournament and catch them really well. I think that's the beauty about East Texas too. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of different ways to catch them. A guy could have been throwing a red-eye shad up shallow, lipless crankbait, caught a big bag like that. I'm sure some guys did, so you can catch your strengths there. At any time, you can fish shallow, you can fish deep, you can fish somewhere in between. I mean, really, there's not a set way to go do it, and you can have success doing it however. You just got to fish your strengths, your confidence. And that's what I tell guys whenever they ask me about, coming to Louisiana or coming from Louisiana to fish Toledo Bend or fish Sam Rayburn. How do you approach those lakes? And I tell all those guys to just fish your strengths, fish what you have confidence in. And I think that'll allow you to have success. If you go to those lakes and you try to do something you've never done before, that's great if that's what you want to do, if you want to learn to fish outside your comfort zone. But if you're going to immediately fish and want to have a little bit of success in the event maybe that you're fishing, my advice is to fish your strengths and fish how you're confident in fishing.
Well, something we always talk
about on the Bass Magazine podcast is confidence. For the weekend angler, for the Bassin reader, what's your definition of how to grow confidence in a bait?
So confidence in a bait just comes with catching fish on it. That's plain and simple. But I wouldn't get too dialed in on being confident in a bait, because if you get confident in a bait, that bait might just not work that day. So it's and then you lose confidence in it. I would say I would encourage people to get more confident in fishing the day, fishing the circumstances that you're in, getting confident and being open-minded. That is the key, I would say, is be confident and being open-minded and making decisions on the water, making those adjustments you need to make. That way you can switch up baits whenever you need to and in that decision rather than that. And that's going to allow you to have more success on the given day rather than, man, like I know they'll bite that, I know they'll bite that jig. I got to throw the jig. Well, they're not biting the jig that day. I don't care how good you are at it. If Andy Montgomery was right here, fishing the jig, he wouldn't be getting bit on it because they're just not biting it that day. And that's just an example. I'm just saying, get confident in fishing the day, fishing the moment, fishing the pattern that's that time, rather than any specific technique will carry you a lot further on any given day.
That's a good answer.
It's a good answer. That's
a really
definitely
good answer.
What we need to hear for our listeners.
So you do have to have confidence in your lures, but also you have to have confidence in lots of different lures, and you have to have confidence in yourself and your ability to fish is what I think he was saying. So that you can switch things out and adjust as things change, because things are changing sometimes minutes, particularly in the early season. So,
yeah, absolutely.
As long as you can
I look at it like this. I don't get too wrapped up. I don't get too wrapped up in baits, colors, any of that stuff. I look for presentation. I look for what is the right bait for the situation that I'm in. I want to find a fish. The fish that I'm looking for, typically, I'm looking for the fish that's set up. He's going to feed. And it really don't matter whether you throw a crankbait by him, a spinnerbait by him, or if you flip a jig to him. If he's sitting by that stump and he's hungry, he's there because he wants to feed, he's going to bite the first thing that goes by his face. And it don't matter if it's green or if it's red or if it's white. If he's hungry enough, if he's aggressive enough, if he's set up and ready to feed, a bass is an opportunist. He's going to bite the first thing that comes by there when he's ready to. And that's the fish that I'm looking to find. Those are the fish that I'm looking to target whenever I'm in a tournament situation. There are times where color comes into play, where the profile of the bait comes into play, the size of the bait comes into play. But there are also usually fish that are aggressive enough at that point in time. You're getting that reaction bite out of them, and they didn't analyze it. Like, they didn't look and see that's green pumpkin blue or that's green pumpkin red. Like, they didn't look at all that. They just bit with the reaction. And that is the fish I'm trying to find. Like, if he's smart enough to tell whether or not that's green pumpkin blue or green pumpkin red, he's too smart for me. And I'm going to go find one that's dumb. I'm going to go find this dumb buddy that's just hungry. That's the one that I want to catch that day. You know, and that's just my simple approach, because whenever you fish a bunch of different places, whenever you fish new water, like places maybe that you've never been to before, there are variables that are way more important than trying to dial in a specific color and all of that. I'm going to tell you firsthand, watching forward-facing sonar, color does not matter that much. I've watched them. I mean, I can watch them now. We can watch these fish interact with our bait, and I have seen them follow my bait down, not eat it, and I think, well, let me try for color. Put a different color on there. He follows it back down, and he still doesn't eat it. Like, and I'm not saying, I know for a fact that colors do play at some point in time, but
sure they do.
It's way more important to find a pattern of aggressive fish that are feeding than it is to find that specific color or bait, for that matter.
How easy is it to find a dumb friend that'll eat?
Take in the middle of the summer. You're Brad, you just say that you're looking for fish that'll eat?
Well, he said he'll find a dumb fish that'll eat. You know, are you seeing that on your forward-facing sonar? If fish A doesn't bite, how do you find a dumb one?
Cover water, and it does. You know, being efficient and covering water. I think, but there's a fine line. Covering too much water, you just got to fish. But you know, I don't strictly rely on my forward-facing sonar. I still fish, but I do use it whenever I can, just to give me feedback and to give me an idea of what's really going on down there. You essentially take it like you're putting some goggles under the water, and I get a live view of what's going on down there. I can see where the bait's setting up. I can see a bass setting up next to a stump, and then I can see if he eats bait or not. So I'm not always strictly relying on it, but it gives me an idea of what's going on. But as far as finding his dumb buddy, you know, and that's a funny way of putting it. But yeah, it's just about covering water and efficiently. I'll use my forward-facing sonar to establish, all right, they're on stump. There's if I can roll down through, let's say I'm rolling down through a pocket and I see a stump and I see a bass bite it. If I get him to bite, then I'm gonna look for the next stump. And if I see there's another bass beside, if I'm gonna quit fishing and I'm gonna start looking for a bunch of stumps. I know that may be potentially a pattern, right? I'm just gonna idle around my side imaging at that point in time and look for, you know, some areas where it might even be a specific type of stump in a channel swing or something like that. But typically, whenever you find one set up, ideally you'd like to be able to pattern that. Sometimes that's hard to do. I do find that East Texas and Louisiana and stuff, sometimes you can establish a pattern, but Rayburn especially is notorious for being a spot lake. You might find a spot where there's a drain with a stump in it, and there'll be a school of fish by that stump. You can go run around and try to find 16 more places like it, and there won't be a school of fish there. So you got to establish whether or not that was a spot or a pattern, right? Fortunately, like I really enjoy fishing places like Clark's Hill, where I won at a couple weeks ago. Clark's Hill is a kind of almost a Highland Reservoir type area, type lake here in South Carolina. It's on the South Carolina-Georgia. Went there a couple weeks ago. That was a very patternable lake. Like, I could look at something on the map and run to another place like it that I'd never been to, and there would be fish in that area. So it just depends on the body of water that you're on. Lake Norman, where we just fished red crest, that was a very patternable lake. I was able to run around in places I'd never seen before just because it looked right on the map and find fish there. Table Rock, that's another one that's notoriously very patternable. Usually your Highland reservoirs are a lot more patternable than, say, our lakes in East Texas and in Louisiana. And that I can't really tell you exactly why that is, but it's just something that I've found out. And it's okay. You just have to be able to determine whether or not that was a pattern or whether or not that was a spot. Both are good. You just have to be able to determine the difference between the two.
Okay. So you don't think that how about the shallow water down here around where I live? I don't think that's very patternable. Like in the Spillway and the Henderson.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be fishing Lake Marpole. Let's say you're in Lake Marpole and you're in Blind River and you catch a big one off a stump, or you catch a big one. I've patterned them in the Blind River area, like Bayou Chicken, something.
Yep.
I've caught them before in an evening tournament down there where they're on the like in the summer, heat of the summer, right? They're on the deepest cypress tree in the channel swing, right? So you're going down the canal, and the canal makes a big bend, right? And there'll be a big cypress tree in that bend. You'll catch one on that cypress tree, and then you'll go down. If you don't have to fish, not get another bite, and you get to that next bend in the bayou, and there's another cypress tree right there, and you'll catch one on it. And so it's really the combination of the channel swing, because that's where the current kind of digs it out and it's deeper. Yep. And then there's also a piece of structure there on that channel swing. Bang, you catch that fish right there. So that's a pattern. And then before you know it, I'll start running every one of those. I'll start running those patterns, like those channel terms, and start just fishing those cypress trees there. So, but you might catch a 4-pounder off that cypress tree in that channel turn, and you think, man, all right, I'm gonna go find another one. 6 more channel turns, and you don't get bit. That was a fluke. Quit chasing it. Yeah. That was a one fish deal. So and that's what I was saying earlier about being open-minded and not getting too dialed in on anything particular, because fishing changes all the time. So if you stay open-minded, you don't spin out whenever you don't get bit by those next 6 cypress trees, and then you just go back to fishing. And sometimes the pattern, there is no pattern. Like, you got to junk fish, and you just got to fish. You just got to put the trolling motor down, put your head down, and cover water, and keep an open mind. And there are plenty of times that are like that. Without a doubt.
Wow, that was a good answer, Dakota. That was a good answer, because I come down here from Illinois, and
sorry, I get a little long-winded on some of this stuff sometimes. I get fired up about it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Oh yeah. Well, so do me. You're in good company, because Brad and I get real fired up about some of this stuff. But I came down here from Illinois, where it's easy to catch fish because there's not as much cover. The lakes of the north just don't have the cover that they have down here. And when you find some good cover, you can find schools of fish. And sometimes, man, you can catch 20 fish out of one school. I come down here and the fish are all spread out. Well, like you said, you find a piece of structure and there's one fish on it. Wow. Yeah. It's just a lot different, and I'm learning how to adjust. But it's harder to catch fish down here in this area when there's shallow water and where the water sometimes gets up to 90 degrees. It's a lot more difficult to catch fish than it was up north.
It's not as much the water. They still have to eat, and when the water's hot, their metabolism starts running. Whenever that water temperature gets up, their metabolism has to keep up. They'll still feed. You just gotta, you've got to adjust with it. I mean, it's just different. And to your point, a lot of places. That's why I really enjoy and have had a lot of success fishing up north, is because a lot of times you'll find that one isolated piece of structure up north where there's not a lot in the water, right? It might be but it's all they have to relate one on it. And there might be 6 or 7 of them on it. Whereas here, in South Louisiana, where you're at right now, where a lot of your listeners may be, everything looks like it could have a battle.
Everything.
Structure, they're everywhere in the water. There's cypress trees everywhere. There's grass. There's matted vegetation. They have all kinds of options. So you have to figure out which one it is they're on that day.
And like if you're on the Atchafalaya Spillway, Brad could not believe when he looked at a map of that how much water there's. You can go on canals. You can literally follow the same canal for 100 miles.
Yeah, that's just. I mean, there's water everywhere.
Yeah, and there's a lot of water, a lot of dead water.
A lot of dead water. Yes. There's a lot of dead water down here, folks.
Yeah.
And
but it looks like everything is fish.
Yeah.
Especially what Dakota's saying, where you go up on the stump and there's a fish there, so you go up on another stump and you might fish 500 more stumps because none of them had a fish. And you got to know when to get off of it.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why he was saying to keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm starting to put this together. Keeping an open mind is the hardest part I have, because I find myself doing what a lot of the other anglers do, is I fish a lot of memories. And, I think if I listened to Dakota and kept an open mind, I'd do better down here.
I actually, like, whenever I go back home to Rayburn and I'll do some fishing there, when I go back to Rayburn and I get prepared to fish another event there, I probably won't upload a single waypoint, even though I have thousands stored away in my computer. I probably won't upload a single waypoint, just because you get too wrapped up in the fishing history, man. And that stuff, out of the 5,000 waypoints I probably have on Rayburn that I've over the years, there's probably only about 10 or 20 of them at the most that are worth having there year to year that could potentially be good at any given point in time. Out of 5,000, I would say there's about 10 that are worth, having like that. Yeah.
Wow.
I feel bad. I've stole Casey Ashley's trophy room, and he just got back here to the house. Walk in. And by the way, that's not my classic trophy. That one. That's not.
Okay.
I'm here at my buddy Casey Ashley's place. I'm sure everyone knows Casey Ashley. He's not enough to let me stay at his place in between tournaments here, and so I've been crashing his house for a couple of days before we head to Murray for the next Bass Pro Tour event.
That's not my classic trophy. That's funny. I just noticed that after you mentioned it. Yeah.
That's from when it was in North Carolina.
That was from
Hartwell. Yeah, Hartwell.
Lake Hartwell, North Carolina.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Hartwell.
Yeah. 2015.
Yep.
Nice. Well, congratulations, Casey.
South Carolina.
Congratulations. That is funny. It's not my classic. I didn't even notice it till you said it.
Yeah. It's really cool getting the, fish the Bass Pro Tour now, and, fishing the Bass Pro Tour and having the opportunity to fish against, people that I've looked up to my whole life, like Casey and Kevin Van Dam and Brian Thrift, the list goes on and on. Legends of the sport, that I have the opportunity to compete against now and, become friends with a lot of them. They've helped me out a lot, taught me a lot of things that, I never could imagine. It's really cool being the young guy on getting to compete against these legends of the sport. It's really a unique opportunity, and I'm very thankful for that. Like I said, I'm here staying at one of the Classic Champions house. I mean, to be around that kind of company makes you so much angler. I mean, it's the same with anything, any profession. You become the crowd you run with. You run with champions, you run with winners, you become a winner. Yep. Inevitably, look at here. I've had 2 winners. So very thankful for the company that I over the last couple of years fishing professionally, fishing on tour. It's definitely made me a better angler.
Well, I completely agree with you. And, we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to our viewers here on the Bassin Magazine podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Jay's going to ask you, but do you have shout outs you want to give?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Thank y'all so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Always enjoy to get talk to guys out fishing, man. I'm all about that. I know it's old, and but no, like I said, just thanks for having me. I appreciate it. If I can, you got some young listeners out there and stuff. I definitely just encourage them to keep fishing, keep on, enjoy it. Don't take it too seriously. Don't worry too much about sponsors and all that stuff, man. Just fish, have fun, enjoy it, and run with good company. It'll take you a long ways. The people you hang around with, be around like-minded people that want to be successful, people that want to win, and it'll take you far, no matter what it is in life you're doing.
Absolutely. Would you like to do some shout outs to your sponsors?
Yeah, fortunate to work with some great companies in the industry. This year I'm working with Strike King and Lose. I remember winning my first tournament at False River in New Roads, Louisiana, on a Strike King worm. I posted about it today. So the opportunity now, years later, to actually work with that company is truly an honor. Strike King, Lose. I've been working with Tiger Creek Lodge there at Sam Rayburn. So if you're looking for a place to stay, you're looking to have an to catch one of those giant bags at Sam Rayburn, Tiger Creek is a great place to do that. I've been with them for a couple of years now. They have a beautiful lodge right there on the south end of the lake, and we can accommodate anything from corporate trips to just, if you're coming out with your family on a weekend vacation. So if you're looking for a place to stay on Sam Rayburn, Tiger Creek is definitely the place, and I appreciate all their support. And, everybody else that I work with, and Phoenix has been with them for a while, running their boats and stuff. So all together, man, I'm just very thankful for the business partners that I have, and looking forward to getting back out on the water later this week and competing at Murray. Be sure to follow us on the Bass Pro Tour this week. Competition begins on Sunday. So
awesome. I wish you the best of luck. And we have, just in closing, we have a comment from Josh Nelson. Josh Nelson is a great friend of the Bass Magazine podcast. He's actually been a guest here too. And he said, great interview, and thank you for being on, Dakota. So anyway.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dakota. Appreciate it.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning into the Bassin Magazine podcast. Guys, remember, Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. Thank you, Dakota. Thank you. You're a great person to interview. I do apologize, but I have no power over the power of Wi-Fi. The power of Wi-Fi I don't think Wi-Fi likes us, Brad.
I know. I hear you.
I really don't think Wi-Fi likes us. But
it wouldn't be the Bassin Magazine podcast without technical difficulties.
But just like what makes us good fishermen is we don't ever give up. There's just no quit in us. And Dakota, thank you again. And please stick around for a couple minutes. We'd like to talk to you after the podcast ends. With that, I'm going to end the podcast. Remember, guys, Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. And guys, please give my YouTube account, which is Let's Talk Fishing Video, that you're watching on right now. Give that a like and a share and subscribe. And, it's Wednesday night, guys. Make your weekend plans. Go fishing this weekend. You only get to do this once. There's no substitute for time on the water.